This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we take a look at the headlines that you may have missed this morning. We also take a look at some of the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 24th of September 2021, and I am AX.
I am Serbia.
And I am GK. In case you missed the headlines, here they are. We begin with the Daily Nation. It says, the good doctor who killed his children. Very sad.
Ooh.
Then we moved on to the Standard. Mad rush for alternative parties. The Star, Raila Ruto face party primaries headache. And finally, the People Daily, to endorse or not, dilemma of big wigs. So, Serbia, why don't you kick us off today?
So today I would like to talk about the nominations at UDA. I submit that the exodus we will witness after UDA nominations will be colossal.
Okay.
I think by now hustlers are noticing democracy is just an illusion in Ufukara Daima Alliance. Ruto's promise of free and fair elections is just another convenient lie. But are we really surprised? Ruto is a man who lies so frequently and so casually that it has become second nature to him. He lies so much that he even contradicts his own lies sometimes in the same breath. Let's face it, since his Waika in 2 days, nothing about his nature has changed. And nothing will ever change. In the past, he has had a tendency of handpicking leaders that he could easily manipulate. And now it's a case of same monkey, different forest. He is running the UDA party like a kiosk. Everyone and their mother are busy trooping to Karen to get endorsements for nomination tickets. Actually, if you can afford fare, you might as well go to Karen and be handed a nomination ticket. I'm even surprised several dinosaurs masquerading as youth leaders in UDA have now resulted to giving ultimatums to the Prince of Doublespeak to change his wayward ways or they can leave. They can as well start living. Whatever they are asking for, it's not gonna happen. These sycophants that he is now planting through UDA will stand for nothing and will merely be his stooges. Is this perhaps the same reason Ruto was advocating for a lack of university education to anyone running for elective office? Was this so that he can elevate mediocre leadership and by extension keep the masses stupid? Machiavelli told us that to determine the intelligence of a ruler, we need to look at the men around him. And Ruto has an abundance of shady characters around him whose only loyalty is the Kenya shilling. I mean, they should scare the bejesus out of any concerned citizen. Look at Waiguru. She might soon join the cabal of political fraudsters who want to take shelter in UDA after becoming political pariahs. Waiguru has suddenly realized she might not get re-elected and is contemplating ditching the Jubilee Party. Perhaps she thinks by joining UDA, she can use the party to sanitize herself and hide her incompetency. Little does she know that this political miscalculation might actually hasten her departure to political obscurity. She is now the Kikuyu nobody wants to buy or even rent. A watermelon who was praising BBI on a Monday and slandering it on a Tuesday.
Yes.
All for political survival. Come to think of it, she and Ruto might be a match made in heaven. As Tangatanga continues taking in strays and dejected leaders from other parties, it fails to access their value proposition. While we are of the opinion that most are freeloaders, others might actually have the numbers. So if Ruto locks out other aspirants with his direct nomination tickets, what happens to these aspirants' voter bases? It is evident that he is at crossroads as internal wrangles in UDA continue to pile.
Absolutely.
The harem of hustlers is now degenerating into the Tower of Babel. But we will let him carry on. Like Napoleon Bonaparte said, never interrupt your enemy when he is making a mistake.
Yes.
Wow. Wow.
I've had fun.
That's all I can say. That is all I can say. AX, what are you going to talk about?
So, my thoughts this morning are inspired by The Standard. The Standard reports that 75 political parties have registered with the registrar, outnumbering the 66 that participate in the 2017 election. Therefore, today I would like to answer two questions. Why are politicians registering parties en masse? And will it change the electoral landscape in 2022?
Hey, please tell us more.
Now, Professor Mutai Nguni has said that political elections are determined by velocity, terrain, and positioning. Yes, velocity is the speed at which you campaign, the life of your campaign. Positioning is who you have allied yourself with. And terrain are the conditions of competition, which is to say the number of available seats and the number of political parties, etc. And more political parties will change the terrain of the 2022 elections. These changes will be the most drastic at lower levels of government, that is MCAs, governors, and senators. Now that politicians have a choice, the large number of political parties will inspire loyalty to a party and not just to party. Yes. And as a result, might a star be born? A politician capable of going alone and popular enough to see it through. Or might we see the rise of the independents, politicians loyal only to themselves and their interests? Whatever may happen at lower government will, however, not happen at the highest levels. No stars will be born and no independence will be forged. At the higher level, that is president, deputy president, and MPs, politicians will come together to see that their interests are realized. Therefore, coalitions are inevitable. Fact. This is what happened with NASA in 2017, with Cord and Jubilee in 2013, and NARC in 2002. And this is what will happen to UDA, never mind Ruto's plan to ally with the people. That idea makes about as much sense as his wealth. Therefore, if coalitions are inevitable, why are top politicians rushing to register political parties? Could it be that the parties being registered are shell political parties?
Possible.
Pawns in a much wider game that will see them be consumed by the Leviathan that is UDA. Perhaps consumed as a show of strength or as a demonstration of popular support. Or could it be the politicians are preparing for the Rurashios? Are they, through new political parties, repositioning themselves in 2002 to make sure that they get the highest bride price possible? After all, new political parties will help demonstrate just how many numbers each politician can marshal and expose their allies. This could help increase the bride price when the time comes to coalesce in 2022. So, a word to our politicians, both high and low. Choose your party wisely.
Indeed, indeed. And you know, you've been talking about politicians, and I may be addressing some politicians very soon as well. Today, I would like to address the House of Mumbi and their neighbors on the mountain.
Okay.
For the past month or so, leaders of the mountain have openly declared that they will work together to unite the mountain and ensure their interests are maintained. But I can't help but feel both confused and unfortunately slightly underwhelmed with the current selection that Gemma has to offer.
Tell us more.
Professor Mutai Nguni once said that the only man in Gemma that can fix William Ruto is Martha Karua. But it remains to be seen whether Iron Martha can get out of her own way. Kenneth, or Peter Kenneth that is, has had no real clout since he told us to now snake. And don't get me started on these guys called Kuria and Kionjoli. This leads me to ask a question. Why are this current group of Gemma leaders so uninspiring? I believe the answer could be one of two things. Let us look at the facts first. Kenya has never had an election where neither of the top two leading candidates have come from the mountain. Never in 30 years of democratic elections in the country. In 92, it was Moi versus Kibaki versus Matiba. 97, Moi versus Kibaki. In 2002, Kenyatta versus Kibaki. 2007, Kibaki versus Raila. And the last two election cycles have been Kenyatta versus Raila. It is a fact that Gemma has not been at the top two position. The leaders of Gemma need to understand their value in numbers. Let us not forget that Gemma still has the advantage of incumbency.
Of course, yeah.
Secondly, perhaps these leaders are uninspiring because Gemma already has a leader. And his name, guess is Uhuru Kenyatta. In the Kikuyu tradition of succession, it is not handed between the people of the same generation or rika. It is passed on from generation to generation.
Indeed.
After a leader in waiting goes and asks the elders for their blessing, something none of these candidates have done. President Uhuru Kenyatta has not yet groomed his successor from the mountain, which means that he is still the de facto leader of Gemma. To sum it up, in my humble opinion, I believe right now Gemma is lacking direction, a direction that the current crop of leaders cannot provide. This is because the leadership of Gemma is not just electoral leadership, it is generational, which means that even after this election, the leader of Gemma will remain to be Uhuru Kenyatta until he hands over to the next crop of successors.
Excellently put.
So, we have a three-part criteria that we use to judge the headlines for you. We ask ourselves these three questions. Question 1, is the headline topical or speculative? Question 2, is it repetitive or groundbreaking? And finally, is it thoughtful or just plain lazy? Let me reread the headlines for you. The Daily Nation, the good doctor who killed his children. The Standard, mad rush for alternative parties. The Star, Raila Ruto face party primaries headache. And the People Daily, to endorse or not, dilemma of big wigs. So in my humble opinion, we can scratch out the Daily Nation. I think it is topical, but it's just depressing. Let me just be honest, it's just depressing. I kind of like either the Standard or the People Daily.
Yeah.
Which one do you guys think?
I think the People Daily, during this season of party politics, coalitions and alliances, so it's very topical.
So there we go.
People
The
Daily.
People Daily gets our winning headline, to endorse or not, dilemma of big wigs.
And now for our final thought. Today we are looking at cyber spies, the secret history of surveillance, hacking and digital espionage by Gordon Corera.
Yes, before we get into the book, let me give you a summary for the week. This week we have been looking at spies and espionage. On Tuesday, we looked at Defend the Realm, the authorized history of MI5 by Christopher Andrew. In the book, the British security service MI5 opened their archives to an independent historian for the first time, opening its archives to an independent historian. The book reveals the precise role of the security service in the 20th British century. On Wednesday, we looked at Deception, Spies, Lies, and How Russia Dupes the West by Edward Lucas. In the book, Lucas tells the story of post-Soviet espionage, drawing an exclusive interviews with Russia's top NATO spy, Herman Sim, and Russian history. Lucas warns his Western audience not to fall asleep at the wheel. Let's move on to Thursday. We looked at the Mossad, the greatest missions of the Israeli Secret Service by Nissim Mishal and Michael Bar Zohar.
Okay.
The Mossad is widely recognized today as the best intelligence service in the world, and this book unveils the defining and most dangerous operations that have shaped Israel and the world at large from the agency's more than 60-year history. And as she said, today we're looking at Cyber Spies, the secret history of surveillance, hacking, and digital espionage by Gordon Corera.
Indeed, for as long as there have been secrets, somebody else has tried to find out what those secrets are.
Absolutely.
And with today's book, we learn about the art of cyber espionage and how it was developed. Like we have all said, today we are looking at Cyber Spies, the secret history of surveillance, hacking, and digital espionage by Gordon Corera. In Cyber Spies, Corera defines cyber espionage as, and I quote, the stealing of information over computer networks, end quote, before exploring the history of cyber espionage and the many different ways states have tried to interfere with communication. Corera begins by telling us about the First World War. In that war, the British cut German undersea cables, severely capping the Germans' ability to communicate. In the Second World War, the British broke Nazi code using the world's first computer spy, Enigma. And by the way, there's there's an excellent movie about this called The Imitation Game with Benedict Cumberbatch. And from there, cyber spying took off. Now, as Corera traces the development of cyber espionage, he takes the time to identify the impact it has had on the world around it. Colossus, the computer that decoded Enigma, would usher in the age of information technology. And eventually, the computers that would succeed Colossus would do more than just break codes. I mean, every single person has one of these computers in their back pockets. They would be able to hack into your devices without you knowing about it. And I do mean you. watching us right now. Don't forget that in 2013, we learned that the US was spying on its own citizens. And in 2018, that Facebook has been reading your messages on Messenger. As the technology developed, so did the espionage targets and reach. Suddenly, nuclear facilities could be breached without sending in a soldier, as with Stuxnet. And terrorist organizations can be thwarted from home, as with Operation Cupcake. Now, everyone can be the target of a cyber spy's mission. According to Carrera, and I quote once more, espionage is no longer the domain of just a few states as it was a quarter of a century ago. It is something that affects us all and can be done to us and even by us. So this begs the question, does this make us spies? While I am sure many of us wouldn't turn down the opportunity to be James Bond,
Absolutely not.
Carrera does not give us an answer. I suppose that question, whether or not we are spies, is for us to answer, to decide how we will use the incredible power at our disposal, and if we choose to use it, what we choose to use it for.
To take over the world.
That's not, no.
Anyways. The book aims to explore the relationship between technology, as you said, AX, and the world of espionage. A marriage that has existed for more than 100 years now. But using history, the author is able to intrinsically show us how technology shaped the way espionage has been undertaken throughout these years. To me, guys, the chapter that was the most interesting was chapter 14.
Okay.
The chapter talks about sabotage. Now, if you are like me and love spy history, then you know a thing or two about sabotage. It is one of the most efficient tools a spy has in their toolkit. It doesn't just slow down the opponent, it takes them back to square one.
Yeah.
In the chapter, the author narrates two missions 60 years apart. One was in Nazi-occupied Norway in 1943, and the other was in Iran. I will focus on the second mission in Iran. It was far different from the Nazi one, yet similar in its impact. This one occurred in Iran, but was also implemented to halt a nuclear program as well. Now, it is widely accepted that the making of nuclear weapons is a very complicated art that only a handful of nations have managed to crack.
Yes.
Iran have been studying how to make nuclear weapons for decades. There is now a mountainous region called Natanz, where Iran had been spinning thousands of what they call centrifuges, which is a crucial part of the nuclear making process. When spinning at the right pace, they can separate the heavier parts of uranium gas from the lighter parts. This process is called enrichment. It is what is used as a fuel for nuclear reactor. Do it enough times and you can develop a nuclear bomb. The problem with enrichment is that it is such a delicate process. The slightest imbalance in one cog of the system and the entire system can die.
Okay.
Sort of like a domino effect. For a while, the Iranian engineers could not figure out why their efforts would fail. Little did they know that a computer virus was ensuring that they would never succeed. The virus was, as you said, AX, called Stuxnet. It is believed that the Stuxnet virus was the invention of none other than the United States. And it managed to destroy at least 1,000 centrifuges before it was finally discovered. With the click of a mouse, the US managed to stall Iranian nuclear advancement. Now, the art of sabotage is a brilliant tool of strategy, not just in espionage, but in politics as well. The aim is not necessarily to destroy, but rather to annoy, to target key components of the opponent machinery that ensures that they will never succeed.
So I'll add something to what you've just said about the Stuxnet virus. So, however, I will bring a different angle to this by looking at the technical bit of it. The Stuxnet virus was introduced to the Natanz plant in Iran around 2005 to destroy their nuclear plant using a mouse and a computer code, just like you said. When Stuxnet infected the plant, the first things the Iranian engineers heard was a screeching sound. Machines started breaking and parts started breaking down. They thought it was poor engineering, but no sooner would one problem be fixed than more centrifuges will break down. What they did not know was that a hidden hand was remotely manipulating the controls to take advantage of the delicate nature of the devices. The code that struck Natanz was a work of engineering bravado, and it worked by stealthily for years rather than with a single bang. The author describes the attack as periodic choking rather than breaking the victim's neck. The Stuxnet was was so sophisticated in that the virus was looking for a specific model of a programmable logic controller made by Siemens.
Yeah.
And even then, it only became interested if it was sitting in a particular configuration indicating it had found nuntans. If those conditions were not met, it will do nothing. In other words, the aim was to avoid collateral damage, and it was also time to self-destruct in mid-2012.
Yeah.
By late 2009, the engineers at Natanz couldn't figure out what was wrong, and this sowed confusion and even paranoia within the program.
Yeah.
And of course, this had been the intention of the program: make your opponent no longer trust technology. By 2010, the destruction became more dramatic and the secret escaped.
Yeah.
By then, at least 1,000 machines are thought to have been damaged by Stuxnet, just like GK said. However, the most important question was, how did the Stuxnet code get into the centrifuge system when it was not connected to the internet? This brings us back to the old-fashioned way of human espionage, the traditional lethal way. It required a person, a human intervention, who had access to carry the virus and go plug it in. This goes to show that at one point or another, a combination of technical and human intelligence is always needed. Even if the Stuxnet spread on its own, it was made possible by the traditional method of espionage, which just circles back that apart from technology, human nature is just as important. And this continues to shape the field of cyber espionage to this day.
Wow, wow, wow. So, on a day when we had a winning headline from the People's Daily, we would like to leave you with this quote. It is by Morton Blackwell. It says, "To succeed inside a political party, one must cultivate an ability to sit still and remain polite while foolish people speak nonsense." So, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are also on your TV screens. Find us on Pang, Free to Air, GoTV, and Star Times. Thank you so much for watching.
Enjoy your weekend. Good night.